Curfew relaxed in the country to bring normalcy. Prime Minister says the National Elections Commission does not have power to postpone the election without fixing another date. Director General of Health Services says COVID-19 situation in the country has been controlled. 4 new species of beetles identified from Sri Lanka.
Good evening and welcome to your primetime news. Let's start off with your main story for tonight. Now, the government has decided to relax curfew regulations in a bid to restore normalcy in the country following the outbreak of COVID-19.
Accordingly, curfew for the entire island except for Colombo, Gampaha, Kalutara, Puttlam, Kandy, Kegol and Ampara districts will be lifted at 5 a.m. on Monday, that is the 20th, and reimposed at 8 p.m. the same day. The curfew for these districts will be in effect daily from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. the next day until further notice. Curfew for Alawatugoda, Akurana, Warakapula and Akkarepattu police divisions will remain in place until further notice. For all other areas in the Kandy, Kegol and Ampara districts will be lifted daily at 5 a.m. on Monday, that is the 20th of April, and will be reimposed at 8 p.m. the same day. For Colombo, Gampaha and Puttlam districts, curfew will be lifted daily at 5 a.m. from Wednesday the 22nd and will be reimposed at 8 p.m. the same day. However, curfew will remain in place for Kotahena, Grand Pass, Bambalapitiya, Keselwatta, Maradana, Gotatuwa, Mulleriyawa, Vallampitiya, Mount Lavinia, Dehiwala, Kohuwala, Jayala, Kochikade, Seeduwa, Puttlam, Marwila, Vennapuwa, Bandaragama, Payagala, Beruwala, Alutgama, Warakapula, Akurana, Alawatugoda and Akkarepattu until further notice.
Now, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa says that the National Elections Commission does not possess the power to postpone parliamentary elections without fixing another date. Issuing a communique, the Prime Minister said when the election cannot be held on the day fixed by the President, the Elections Commission is mandatorily required to fix another day for the poll.
Prime Minister Rajapaksa said such mandatory legal requirements cannot be ignored on the basis of speculation as to what may or may not happen weeks and months into the future. He added that the Elections Commission should first fulfill its duties under Section 24 subsection 3 and thereafter take up for discussion any outstanding issues. He said, and I quote, "On the 2nd of March, the President dissolved Parliament and fixed 25th of April for the polls and 14th of May for the first meeting of the new Parliament. 10 days later, when the first coronavirus patient was found, the President did not have the power to postpone the poll," unquote. The communique read, and I quote once again, "People unable to go out of their homes had to be supplied with essentials like food, medicine, and even cash throughout the country. Aid had to be provided to low-income earners. The fact that these tasks were dealt with simultaneously at short notice is nothing less than a managerial miracle," unquote. The Premier said today the whole world acknowledges Sri Lanka's success in containing the coronavirus pandemic. While commending the leadership provided by the President, the Prime Minister said, and I quote, "Our government's doctors, nurses and health service workers have come to the attention of the entire world. The skill and dedication of the intelligence services in tracing the contacts of patients, the efficiency of the armed forces in implementing quarantine and lockdown measures has prevented the spread of the disease. The police and government officials at all levels have all contributed to the success of the anti-coronavirus campaign," unquote. He said that today our country is one of the safest places to be in the whole world. He added, and I quote, "We have achieved this despite an economy that have been driven into the ground and an unpatriotic and opportunistic opposition bent on undermining our government at every turn," unquote. The communique read, and I quote, "Things have to come back to normal sooner or later. In 11 of the 25 administrative districts, there have been no coronavirus patients at all. In another 7 districts, there have been only 1 or 2 patients and 5 to 7 patients in 2 more districts. Only 5 districts have a high chance of coronavirus patients. Prime Minister Rajapaksa said that Sri Lanka had to face this crisis in a state of economic ruin. The statement read, "During the 5 years of Yahapalana's misrule from 2015 to 2019, our debt burden increased by 71%. The rupee lost 1/3 of its value and economic growth had plummeted to 2.7%. unquote. He added that although they had won the presidency in November 2019 and formed a government, they did not have a majority in parliament and were not able to get a vote on account passed even to pay the previous government's debts to suppliers of fertilizer and medicine. The Premier said that financial powers vested in the President under Article 150, subsection 3 of the Constitution was the only saving grace in this situation. He added, and I quote, "The opposition leader tried to sabotage the anti-coronavirus campaign at the very outset by personally encouraging protests against the quarantine process. Then they tried to undermine government services, including the health service, with the argument that the president had no power to allocate funds for government services after the dissolution of parliament." unquote.
The heavily discussed 5,000 rupee allowance, now the process of distributing and accepting applications for the 5,000 rupee allowance took place in several areas today. Here is the very latest on that.
The Newsfirst correspondents reported that applications were distributed with the assistance of Gram Niladhari officers, Samruddhi officers and regional state officers. People were seen queued up in the Siribopure area in Hambantota to collect their applications. "We have been deprived of the allowance and essential items. This is not fair. They claim that they have done so much, but nothing has happened. The application form for the allowance is distributed to a selected few. After standing in long queues for so long, they now say the allowance is not issued to the fishermen." Our correspondent said that this process had been conducted in a systematic manner in some areas. This was the manner in which applications were accepted in the Pattiyahanda area in Kalaniya and the Kalutara North areas. This was a situation in the Dehiwala, Mount Lavinia and Kaudan areas.
We have been waiting here for hours. What is the meaning of this? No one comes to visit us, not even an MP or a Gram Niladhari officer. There is a Samruddhi officer, but he is not known by everyone.
Meanwhile, certain Gram Niladhari and Samruddhi officers' unions convened a media briefing today.
Last evening, the Samruddhi department had deposited 474.96 million rupees to the Samruddhi banks. These are the funds that we distribute among the people. The cabinet has granted approval to reimburse these funds from the first budget of the new government. We are carrying out our activities based on this assurance. If we did not fight against the past governments and save the Samruddhi funds, at least 3 million people will be in hunger now. We wish to tell those who joined our trade union action to report to work under the conditions that we have decided. However, keep us informed if you face undue political influence. That is because we have requested that this process be carried out without any political influence. Those employed in the state sector are not eligible. Those who were given 5,000 rupees allowance before are not eligible either.
Meanwhile, a program was held for development officers, agricultural research officers and production assistants of the Kadawat Satra and Gankawat Korale divisional areas in the Kandy district on the issuance of the 5,000 rupees allowance.
The people will be happy if everyone receives this allowance. However, hand over these forms only to the households which have been included on the list of beneficiaries. These forms must be filled out and returned to us. The process of issuing the allowance could be delayed if several officers have to authorize it. That is why we have allowed only the Samurdhi officer and the Gramanilidari officer to authorize this. It is because of the same reason that we haven't appointed even a parliamentarian to authorize the payments. Earlier, the requirement was that all Gramanilidari officers and political representatives should authorize this. That was when the entire process had been completed. Now these forms should be distributed through 2 officers and collected again. We don't have to choose a new set of beneficiaries. The beneficiaries have already been chosen. We have MPs and some of the development officers. We can provide the 5,000 rupee allowance as per the list without any issue. We have made arrangements to ensure the public will receive the allowance within the next 2 to 3 days. This matter was discussed during the meeting that was concluded a short while ago.
මේ සකස් කරපු ලයිස්තු වලට මේ 5000 දීමනාව තව දින දෙක තුනක් ඇතුළත ලබා දෙන්න අවශ්‍ය කටයුතු සියල්ල කරනවා. ඒ සාකච්ඡාව තමයි දැන් අපි පැවැත්වුවේ.
The application form for the 5,000 rupee allowance is distributed from the residence of the Pradeshia Sabha member. So how can this process be fair? Members of the Pradeshia Sabha are a part of the Grama Seva Officers Committee. These politicians were absorbed to the committee upon the instructions of a higher authority. This is why we addressed a letter to the chairman of the National Elections Commission, claiming that the national organizer of a certain political party who was entrusted with the responsibility of this program was doing politics instead of handing out relief. Ideally, such a program should be managed by senior public officials or members of parliament. We have not engaged in any politics, where relief is provided to the general public based on political preferences. We have not even requested for elections to be held at a time like this. The responsibility of the opposition should be to look into this matter. And if there are any factions who are being mistreated, the opposition must try to help us by directing them to a committee that would resolve these issues, instead of accusing the government of taking political advantage.
Now, the Director General of Health Services explained the progress in combating the COVID-19 pandemic thus far.
The spread of COVID-19 has not reached the community transmission phase in the country. The transmission has been limited to clusters as a result of the recent measures taken to stem the spread of the virus. However, we cannot say that the threat of being infected by the coronavirus has been eliminated. The work plan which is being implemented should continue to be in effect even when services gradually resume in the country. That is because the threat is not over yet. However, we can say that the virus has been brought under control. Once again, this does not mean that there is no threat. By continuing to maintain control, we can gradually eliminate the threat from the country.
Now, health authorities announced that 4 people tested positive for the virus over the last 24 hours. Accordingly, the number of patients who are receiving treatment at present has risen to a new total of 164. The total number of patients in the country has also risen to 248, while the number of recoveries currently stands at 77.
According to the patient distribution in the country, the highest number of infections have been reported from the Colombo district with 49 patients. 45 patients have been reported from the Kaluthara district, 35 from the Puttalam district, 28 from the Gampaha district, while 16 have been reported from the Jaffna district. The epidemiology unit said that patients have also been reported from the Kandy, Ratnapura, Kegol, Mathara, Ampara, Gaul, Batiklo, Badulla and Baunia districts. 5 villages in Beruala have been identified as isolated areas. They are China Fort, Pannila, Akkaragoda, Ambepitiya and the Karandagoda areas. Dr. Krishan Hirimuthugoda from the Kaluthara district said that the people of these areas have tested negative for the virus. Meanwhile, at least 360 pavement hawkers in Colombo were taken to 3 areas by the police yesterday. 70 of them had been taken to the Ambepusa district training centre. However, they have been transferred to the Mullative area due to a lack of facilities.
Now, Newsfirst has consistently reported on wildcats from the hill country, but most times, sadly, we have found animals who have lost their lives. Today, however, we have live footage from Nallatani, where wildlife officers were able to rescue a leopard stuck in a tree.
The Nalatani area in the Nurelia district is a locality where one can see a number of leopards. This leopard was reported to have been caught in a trap in the Gardmore estate in Nalatani last night. The leopard had climbed onto a nearby tree when locals rushed to the area. The animal had sustained injuries as a result of being caught in the trap. After several attempts to rescue the animal, the veterinarian in charge of the central province arrived. The animal was released from the trap after nearly 8 hours. The wounded leopard was then transferred to the Randhenigala Veterinary Hospital for further treatment.
We'll be right back after this short commercial break.
රජය විසින් නිර්දේශ කර ඇති මූල්‍යමය සහන පිළිබඳ වැඩි විස්තර සඳහා ආචාර්ය බැංකුවේ විශේෂිත ඇමතුම් මධ්‍යස්ථානය හා සම්බන්ධ වන්න 0112 481 356 0112 421 501 0112 326 130 0112 392 307 අමතන්න.
To your news. Now, is it suitable to hold an election at a time where the people are battered by COVID-19? Several politicians expressed their views in this regard.
We have been able to come to a situation where we are able to contain the coronavirus. We hope the Election Commission will take necessary measures and act according to the legal provisions at a time where the government has taken measures to control the spread of the coronavirus. The people will struggle if an election is held during a period where the country is faced with a pandemic that we have never encountered in our history. Even though the government dreams of an election, we would like to note that this is not the suitable time. Some were urging not to hold the elections immediately. The Election Commission will decide whether to hold it now or later. We have no problem. We understand the problem faced by our friends when the party is split into two. Around 20% join the alternative force and another 10% become neutral. So they have that issue. We have no intention to neither delay nor hurry in the election. The Election Commission and the President will decide on the matter. If an election is held, will it be possible to give each and every voter with separate gloves, pens, and to maintain social distancing? Who takes the responsibility of the government officers? This is a major issue and the government must provide answers to this. 3 days ago, the minister, who is famous for 2,500 rupees, held a musical concert at the Nugegoda housing complex in line with the election propaganda by inviting artists and the general public onto the streets. Where is one country, one law? What is the Election Commission doing? We are completely against the government's action to hold the election by hook or by crook.
අපි සම්පූර්ණ මේකට විරුද්ධයි කියන එක ඉතාම පැහැදිලිව මතක් කරන්න ඕන.
Now, Sri Lanka's Transport Ministry has announced that 5,000 buses and 400 trains will be deployed for public transport services beginning Monday.
The announcement came days after the government signalled its intention to resume services in both the public and private sectors, with the country continuing its fight against the coronavirus. Minister of Passenger Transport Management Mahinda Amaravira, in a meeting with officials, had said transport services must strictly follow the instructions and guidelines issued by the security and health officials. Transport services staff are to be given face masks for their own protection, and buses and trains will be disinfected as well. In addition, trains are to be used to minimize setbacks experienced in the transportation of fruit and vegetables to Colombo and suburbs. Meanwhile, the president of the Lanka Private Bus Owners Association, Gamanu Vijayaratne, explained as to how transport services will operate after curfew is lifted.
Every passenger must wear a face mask, and if they fail to do so, they will not be allowed to board the bus. Bus drivers and conductors should also wear face masks, and the owners of the bus should provide face masks to their employees. Passengers cannot stand while traveling. The number of passengers should not exceed the number of seats in the bus. Once curfew is lifted in high-risk zones, we will follow a special program. During the first 20 days, only one passenger will be allowed per seat. During the next 20 days, the number of passengers will be increased gradually.
අනිත් දින 20 ඉඳන් අනිත් දින 40 දක්වා 75ක්. ඒ කියන්නේ ආසනයකට තවත් කොටසක් විදියට අපි වැඩි කරනවා ක්‍රමානුකූලව.
Now, the chairman of the Information Communication Technology Agency, Jayantha De Silva, stated that his institution has no connection to the document issued by the Government Medical Officers Association regarding the containment of COVID-19.
There is information going around that with GMOA and ICTA, I would categorically say that ICTA is not in any way has anything to do with this, and we have not been part of this.
Now, vegetables were purchased from farmers based on a decision taken by the government.
Vegetables were purchased from farmers at the Nugegoda Divisional Secretariat in Polonnaruwa. Vegetables had also been purchased from farmers at the Alahara and Mandrigire Divisional Secretariats. The Polonnaruwa District Secretary said that more than 50,000 kilograms of vegetables had been purchased in total at these divisional secretariats.
We are happy that the government has implemented such a plan, at least during the last minute. We had been badly affected as we were not able to sell our produce. Therefore, farmers have been granted relief as a result of the government's decision to purchase vegetables. The farmers had received an opportunity to sell their vegetables. The Divisional Secretariat has given the funds that would be required to purchase these vegetables. We will take steps to sell the excess produce of these farmers to other districts at least once a week or once in 2 weeks.
We now draw our attention towards another industry which has been affected as a result of the curfew imposed due to COVID-19.
This is a group of self-employed workers in the coir industry. While several industries in the country have halted operations, these people who eke out a living to support their families have lost their jobs.
It's been 5 weeks since our country halted operations. Therefore, we do not have any source of income. We are leading extremely difficult lives.
The products of these workers now lie in their homes as they have been unable to sell them. These affected employees are calling on authorities to provide a concession to their industry.
No one comes to purchase our goods. We cannot sell them as well. Therefore, we are leading difficult lives. It would be great if someone can help us. There is nothing like that. We don't receive help from others. Our Grama Niladhari officers have not even visited our homes yet.
We are helpless. Someone must be considerate about our worries and help us out.
We expect the government to provide relief to our industry while granting concessions in order to sustain ourselves.
Now back in your political news, the Tamil National Alliance has urged the chairman of the National Elections Commission to refrain from fixing a date for the election at the present time.
In a letter to the head of the Election Commission, TNS said the holding of periodic elections are indeed the cornerstone to upholding democracy. Any exception to this rule can only be in the most serious of circumstances. However, Sri Lanka, like the rest of the world, today faces just such exceptional circumstances. A global pandemic posing grave threats not only to the public health, safety and security, but to the national and global economy as well. The letter added that both local and global medical experts have clearly indicated that the key to containing the spread of this pandemic is to eliminate all public gatherings, movements, and except for essential services and those necessary to prevent economic collapse. Every effort must be made to contain the spread of the disease in order to prevent further burdening an already severely overburdened public health care service, in order to ensure that Sri Lanka is equipped to continue effectively to deal with the health consequences of this pandemic.
Now, the Sri Lanka police raided several illicit liquor distilleries today.
During several police raids launched within the Kalutara South Police area, information regarding 10 illicit liquor distilleries were revealed. Police also arrested 20 suspects during the raids. The raids were conducted in the Kitulava, Koholana, Serupita, Rajavatta areas. Meanwhile, police arrested one suspect who was transporting 50 bottles of illicit liquor on his motorcycle. Police also seized 45 litres of Goda at a house located in the Maalia area in Jayala.
Meanwhile, Deputy Excise Commissioner Kapila Kumarasinghe raised caution over the adverse health effects caused by the consumption of illicit liquor. The adverse effects of consuming illicit liquor can cause deaths. Videos explaining the manner in which alcohol is distilled illegally has been circulating on Facebook and YouTube. Individuals involved in this intentionally or unintentionally will be liable to a 4,000 rupee fine or a year of rigorous imprisonment. We have received information regarding such individuals. The Excise Department is planning to enforce the law strictly against these suspects when the situation returns to normalcy. During the period in which the curfew was in effect, the Excise Department was able to arrest more than 500 people for distilling illicit liquor. The Excise Department is losing a daily income of Rs 500 million for the benefit of the society. The government has closed down liquor stores for the well-being of the people, despite knowing that 15 billion rupees can be earned by imposing excise taxes in a month. We have observed that liquor is being sold at exorbitant rates in the black market. We assume that the stocks of liquor which were purchased lawfully should have been consumed by now. Therefore, we have a huge suspicion as to what substance is being traded in the market as liquor.
එතකොට මේ කාල සීමාව තුළ මේ මත්පැන් යන නමින් වෙළඳ පොළට පැමිණෙන්නේ කවර ද්‍රව්‍යයක්ද කියන එක සම්බන්ධයෙන් අපේ විශාල සැකයක් පවතිනවා.
Now, Defence Secretary retired Major General Kamal Gunaratne met with military personnel on duty in Vaunia yesterday.
The meeting took place at the Vaunia headquarters of the Defence Services. The event also saw the felicitation and appreciation of security forces engaged in the mission to eradicate the coronavirus from the area.
We have no plan to continue this curfew. If we take Colombo, the largest number of patients were reported from the Colombo district. Then it is the Kalutara district, Gampaha district and the Jaffna district. When we lift the curfew in these areas, we need to be careful. We cannot let all that we did up to today go to waste. In the areas where there has been a considerable spread, we will put in place a special plan to lift curfew. As far as I know, in the districts where the virus hasn't spread to that degree, there will be a considerable loosening of the current restrictions. The country will be informed of these measures over the weekend.
Now, a number of beach nourishment projects using soil from the depths of the ocean are currently taking place. Newsfirst had a look into this matter. The 4-kilometre-long course between Angulana and Mount Lavinia, as well as the 2-kilometre-long Calido beach in Kalutara, are currently being subject to beach nourishment projects. The project to put in place an artificial coastline in Valikanna, opposite the Ratmalana railway station, is being done by mining natural sand repositories 6 kilometres off the beach. Why does coastal erosion take place? The beach in Angulana between Kolpiti and Morotua has been lost due to the construction of a number of protective fences in the area. This is how the beach was artificially filled in Mount Lavinia earlier today. The Calido beach in Kalutara has eroded due to the 2-kilometre sand barrier on the coast of Kalutara being eroded. As per the project, around 40 metres of the Calido beach has been filled artificially. This is the state of the Calido beach at present. We started the artificial sand nourishment project on the 29th of February 2020. We called for tenders internationally and handed over the project to a Danish party. This project will cost rupees 890 million and will be solely funded by the government. The Director General also expressed his views on future plans in connection to the project. In a few days, this project will be completed. We could have used barriers to prevent this coastal erosion, but if we do so, we would lose both our tourism and fishing industries in the area. We would lose the beach. Through this, usually we can maintain results for at least 4 or 5 years. If we had money, we could do a similar project in 4 or 5 years as well. The coasts in these areas saw serious erosion due to untimely decisions taken in the past. This has happened due to a change in the direction of the movement of the waves. They are trying to do damage again by following this artificial procedure. On one side, while this will damage the environment and it will cost a great deal of money, and on the other hand, it will also have to be repeated. This sand is mined from areas where there is a large amount of wildlife. This will have an impact on shallow waters where fish breed as well. This cannot be classified as a sustainable project. Regardless of how many times they spend money and do this, it will not become sustainable either. Today, we are experiencing the results of not respecting Mother Nature. This situation has arisen as we have disregarded nature in our quest for development. It is clear now that in approving development projects for the future, that due place needs to be given to environmental considerations. Things looking pretty dire, particularly over there in the United States now. But this is not the first time an international health crisis occurred due to the spread of a novel coronavirus or other zoonotic animal-originated viruses, such as influenza that created the swine, bird and seasonal flu epidemics in recent history. Here is a comparison done by Al Jazeera of the information and data they have on COVID-19 with similar recent coronavirus-related diseases. Newsfirst spoke to infectious disease physician Dr. Sanjay Senanayake for an in-depth explanation.
There is a graph which discusses something called a reproduction number. Now, the reproduction number refers to how many people someone with an infection can infect. So, for example, a reproduction number of 18 for measles means that a single person with measles can infect 18 other susceptible people. There are 3 coronaviruses which cause potentially life-threatening disease. That's SARS, MERS, and COVID-19. Now, SARS has a reproduction number of between 2 and 4. So a single person with SARS can infect between 2 and 4 people. MERS, because even though it persists, it does so in very sporadic cases. So it has a reproduction number of less than 1. And COVID-19 has a reproduction number around 2.5 to 3, which makes it quite infectious.
Dr. Sanjay with some in-depth analysis over there. Now we're going to have a look again at one of our headline-making stories. 4 new species of beetles were identified from Sri Lanka. The latest discovery, of course, is a part of a project named Biodiversity Patterns of Herbivore Scarab Chafers of Sri Lanka. Newsfirst's Zulfiq Farzan filed this report.
This is a collaborative research project between National Institute of Fundamental Studies, Kandy, Sri Lanka, and the Zoological Research Museum Alexander Koenig in Bonn, Germany. The project collaborators are Professor Suresh Benjamin, Dr. Dirk Evans, Dr. Jonas Erbel, and Sasanka Ranasinghe. The first field expedition was performed on February-March 2019, and recently published papers present preliminary results obtained from the first field expedition, and it describes 4 new beetle species from Sri Lanka. The new species were discovered from the localities of Matale and Kegol, while samples were collected from Kandy, Matale, Nuwara Eliya and Ratnapura districts. According to the project documents, beetles were captured using UV light traps and light sheet. The new species are Selacerica atucorali, named after N.P. Atukorala from the National Institute of Fundamental Studies; Neoserica dharmapriyai, named after researcher Sasanka Ranasinghe's husband Dr. Prasanna Dharmapriya. Maladera Galdattana is named after its type locality Galdatta, a small undisturbed forest patch on a rock. And finally, Maladera cervicornis. The name of the new species is derived from the combined Latin nouns cornu, or horn, and cervus, deer, with reference to the shape of the parameters resembling the horns of a deer. The research revealed furthermore the high amount of endemism of the subcontinent and confirmed another time how unexplored Sri Lanka is. Now Sri Lanka comprises of 81 Sericini beetle species.
Now we are compelled to report on the human-elephant conflict on a daily basis because there has been no feasible solution. The Kotmalpura village in Tabuttegama is battered by wild elephants and has been for several years.
Wild elephants have been encroaching the Kotmalpura village since 4 to 5 years. The residents are forced to live with wild elephants in numbers, and around 30 elephants are reported to be in this village. Due to the curfew, we have no way of coming out, especially during the night when people asked us to chase the elephants. People have no way of sleeping. Even the police officers tell us to stay at home due to curfew. We have no one to tell our situation and we don't know what to do. The main road leading to Kotmalpura has a forest reserve on one side and a village on the other. Elephants come to the river Tamarind reserve of this village through the Siambalangamua and Thalawa reserves and enter the village and destroy paddy as well as many other crops. We are clearing the road because at times there is low visibility and 7 or 8 elephants are in the road. There are people who use the road to travel to the economic center. We do this to protect those people and our livelihoods. We don't have proper sleep. All our crops are destroyed. We are now forced to quit paddy farming as well. We are facing tremendous difficulties due to wild elephants. The villagers are now getting back to grow conventional crops rather than paddy, and it seems like an invitation to the wild elephants to encroach into the village and destroy crops such as ladies' fingers, banana, coconut and pumpkin, even before these innocent farmers are able to sell their produce in order to put food on their table and feed their children. They have no one to listen to their grievances, and the wildlife officers have not responded. When the villagers protest, the wildlife office provides a few elephant crackers and drag away from the situation. If the wildlife office operates to provide elephant crackers, their duties can be handed over to the police. And if the wildlife office is dissolved, those funds pumped for their operations can be utilized for a worthy cause. It is evident that the wild elephants of Megalava, Raswehera and Potanegama are quite aware that the wildlife officers in the area are of no use. The officers have locked down their premises even before the coronavirus outbreak. So now the wild elephants roam freely by destroying houses and crops. Sacks of paddy were last night's supper for some elephants. These were stored by innocent farmers to feed their children and family. 2 houses were also destroyed yesterday. The wild elephants did not forget to destroy a pumpkin cultivation on their way as well.
Now the Ministry of Health has released a set of health guidelines to be followed by workplaces which are set to resume operations in the coming days. Now these directives were issued by the Directorate of Environmental Health, Occupational Health and Food Safety of the Ministry in a statement released earlier this month.
Maintaining a distance of 1 meter between workers, wearing masks mandatorily at work, avoiding the usage of common equipment and following respiratory etiquettes were among the guidelines listed out in the statement. Workers have been discouraged to use common equipment in a bid to prevent the possible transmission of the disease. The Health Ministry also urged employers to maintain regular housekeeping practices, including routine wiping, cleaning and disinfecting of surfaces, as the virus can remain active on surfaces for a long time. Meanwhile, staff at service counters have been asked to maintain a distance of 1 meter with the customer or place a shield in front of a counter, in addition to minimizing the handling of cash and sharing stationery. Employers have been called on to provide personal protective equipment for workers if required, improve ventilation facilities, and to restrict gatherings unless absolutely essential. The ministry also requested the employers to grant lunch breaks for employees in batches to prevent gatherings. In the event of detecting a suspected case at a workplace, employers have been advised to transfer the worker to a hospital by ambulance. The suspected worker should wear a mask and be kept in isolation while also following all relevant precautions until the worker is transferred to the hospital.
Well, that's a wrap of your news for tonight. I've been Deshan Gonawala for the News First team. But before we leave you, one last thing. These are difficult times. They are unprecedented times, and the reality that we will step into at the end of this is going to be a new one. Now, the Nagitimu Sri Lanka theme song was created to inculcate a positive mindset within the people of Sri Lanka. We leave you tonight once again, as always, with Nagitimu Sri Lanka.
Nagitimu Sri Lanka.